Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us today in our webinar. My name is Matthias. I'm one of the directors at LevelUp Networks, and today we're going to be introducing LevelUp eLearning, which is our cybersecurity platform for all of your staff. So just to let you know, today we're going to go over some of the features of the platform, explain a few of the most common phishing attacks that are currently happening around the world. And we were going to do a Q&A session, but for some reason, our teams decided not to activate it. So what we'll do is when we reach to that stage, I will ask anyone to send us a quick email if you have any questions about anything that we have spoken about, and we will obviously get back to you in due course with any questions you may have. So without any further ado, once again, welcome, and let's commence with the presentation. So as you probably are aware, technology alone is not enough to safeguard your business against these sorts of cyber attacks, in particular when it comes to phishing. Phishing, for all of you that don't know, is when an organization or a user receives an email pretending to be from either a known contact, from a known organization, or just any sort of random email from anybody on the internet, trying to get you to fill in some forms or enter your credit card details, or pretending just to be someone in your organization to ask you for something to be done immediately. But we'll get to that in a minute. So unfortunately, now that most of us are working from home, targeted attacks are definitely on the rise. Now, 90% of successful data breaches include some sort of phishing attack. So it's not alone where it comes to a virus or ransomware. It's mostly there's some human interaction. Now, why is this a problem? Well, we've noticed that security awareness is definitely lacking within organizations. There's just not enough training, and people still fall for the most common mistakes that have been happening for almost 10 years, or at least since the internet is among us at a more rapid pace through broadband and everything like that. So 12% of users who open a phishing email will click on the harmful link. Now, 12% might not seem like a lot, but if you get a big organization, with 100 people or 1,000, now we're talking a lot of people that may be clicking to those harmful links and can put all of your data at risk. So unfortunately, any technology that we have right now isn't just enough. Now, what do we mean by technology? Well, mostly it's firewalls, antivirus software, anti-malware, things of that sort. They will block quite a few things, but not anything that needs some sort of human interaction. Hence why 1/3 of all phishing emails will get past any sort of default security mechanism. Now, this also includes, for example, your anti-spam that you may have between your email and your servers, or even if you use Office 365 or G Suite, they obviously have some sort of anti-spam, but these will still go through. So what are the potential risks for your business? Well, I think the most important one would be the loss of corporate client data. Now, the last thing you would want is for a cyber criminal to obtain either your data or maybe data from your customers and start targeting these people and then try to do malicious things with that information. Another problem that these kind of attacks could do is that they could do some financial loss for yourself. So let's say, for example, you get an invoice that needs to be paid immediately, and then your finance department goes, puts in the credit card details, and you've just given the credit card details to a cyber criminal. But most importantly, I think as well, is that this could cause some downtime in order to remediate this problem. So once you get attacked, obviously you would report this either to your outsourced IT or your in-house IT department, and that could potentially mean that they would need to put all your network down prior to letting you work in order to resolve this issue. So phishing and social engineering are still the #1 weapon of choice. Why? Well, it's very simple. It's basically because they still count on human error. Now, they still count on people that are not fully trained, as I said earlier, in order to bypass all your technology, therefore gathering all the information they can and either publishing this on the web for cyber criminals or using that information themselves for these malicious attempts. So I think I think most of us have gone through this. I will go through this phishing example, is that you get someone to pretend to be your managing director or someone from the finance department, and they will send someone in the organization an email saying, please pay this immediately, or I am stranded, send me some money, or I've lost my passport details, things of that sort. Then this person that receives the email will start, for lack of a better word, to panic, and will try to resolve this as soon as possible in fear that the managing director will take action against them if they don't access the invoice or if they don't send the details. So as soon as they send this email with either the payment or the bank transfer or sensitive data, you've just given information to this cyber criminal, which obviously allows them then to use that data for malicious purposes, such as, damaging reputation or stealing data from your clients or even stealing your own information for their purposes. Now, the internet is more or less it's separate into different sectors. One of them being the surface web, another one being the deep web, and the final one being the dark web. Now, in order to get a bit of a better explanation about this, I will leave you with one of our sample courses that are within our platform, just so you understand what those three sectors mean within the web.
Most of the web is hidden. The pages you can find on search engines are part of the surface web, a tiny portion of the whole network. The rest, invisible unless you know how to access them, are in the deep web. While it may sound shady at first, chances are you use the deep web every day. The deep web includes all gated pages and data. If you've ever logged into a website to access private content, you have accessed the deep web. This includes private social media profiles, discussion boards, and cloud storage. In addition to innocuous content, the deep web also contains the dark web. To access it, you'll need an anonymous browser like Tor. Tor, or the Onion Router, scrambles web traffic between servers, making it almost impossible to trace, even for intelligence agencies. Due to the privacy afforded by the dark web, it's a hotspot for criminals. Illegal drugs, firearms, and even personal details exposed in cyber breaches are all sold and bought on dark web marketplaces. The dark web does have legitimate uses as well, though. In countries with mass government surveillance, the dark web is used to communicate freely and to find reliable news sources from the outside world. Journalists and whistleblowers also use the dark web to communicate without fear of exposure. If you're interested in visiting the dark web, you should take some security precautions. In addition to using Tor, you should use a virtual private network to encrypt your connection. As long as you never buy or download anything and avoid illegal content, you should be reasonably safe to browse the dark web. But if you're about to go on an adventure into the dark depths of the web, do be careful.
Well, there you have it. That's one of our sample courses that can be sent across to your organization in order for your staff members to get some more education towards phishing and the dark web. So this is Tom. This is one of your employees. Now, there's a lot of IT companies or in-house IT that see users as a weak link or as someone that is just not prepared in order to deal with these sort of technological and cyber attacks. But in our eyes, we see your staff as your first line of defense. Now, obviously, this would be only if you have an effective security awareness training solution, which is what we're here to offer you. So it's very important nowadays that you train your employees to combat these cyber threats, and especially because you want them to be able to identify these sort of threats in order not to compromise your data. Now, a recent research has said that with a modest investment in training, it has a 72% chance of reducing these type of cyber attacks. Now, that is quite important. And why is that? Well, one of them is so you can build a security-minded culture within your organization. Another one is to reduce this downtime, safeguard your data. But I think for many organizations, it's very important, especially the ones that have some sort of compliance, such as the ISO 27001, or they sell online products, so they need some sort of PCI compliance. And this sort of training will assist you to achieve this compliance. So whenever you get an audit or you have to fill out your forms in order to reiterate to the organization that you are compliant with your organization, this will give you that proof that you need, that you're training your staff members, and you can also say what courses you've put them through, what you've done when they fail these courses, if they are aware of your policies. So you'll see soon enough through all of the modules that are available on this e-platform, how you can not only train them, but also assist you to, like I said, achieve this compliance. Now we've divided our platform in essentially 5 different steps. The first one, which is the key one, is to evaluate. Now, what does this step do? So essentially, you're assessing the current risk. That happens when you first enroll one of your users into the platform. They will be automatically sent a gap analysis. So from that gap analysis, it contains a few questions where each question is a different field, such as, for example, policy management, working from home, bring your own device, etc., etc. Now, I will get into a bit more detail when we go into that section, but essentially, this is how you evaluate the weaknesses within your staff. So once those weaknesses are evaluated, the next step would be to educate them. So essentially, you're going to concentrate on the weaknesses and ensure that they take the pertinent courses so they will get a bit more security minded, and also to ensure that they don't commit those mistakes when a real threat happens. There's also a way to test them, their knowledge. So once they've taken these courses, you can set up the platform to simulate attacks into your organization. I'll get to that in a few minutes. And essentially what you do is that you simulate phishing attacks, and then the people that fail this attack will have to take another course on how to identify these threats. And you also have sort of inline reporting and inline tracking to see and drill down to whom in your organization has caused this breach. Then the next important step is to communicate. So how will you communicate? Well, once you see the results of the courses, the simulations, you can start building up your policies within your organization. For example, right now you may have your working from home policy, but it might not be up to date. Maybe that was created a few years ago and you just updated it now, or last year when your company, we all, not your company alone, but all of us were put into lockdown. So but maybe there's some things that you've missed. So with these courses, you'll be able to check exactly what you've missed and then upgrade or update your policies and ensure that everyone in your organization will read it. And the final step will be to calculate. So this is how you measure the progress of your staff. So with all the reporting within the platform, once again, like I said, you will be able to drill down to specific users, specific groups, and see where your fallacies are within your organization. So these are the 4 modules within the e-platform software. So the first one, which is the core of the platform itself, which is called Ulearn, following by Ufish, UBridge, and UPolicy. So let's dive in a little bit more into each module, and so you can understand them. So the first module, as I mentioned, is Ulearn. So Ulearn is a user-focused security awareness training solution. So with this, you can quickly deploy security awareness training programs. You can develop security-minded culture within your organization. You can obviously cut remediation time through these courses and also not only externally but internally cyber incidents. And finally, and very importantly, is to help you achieve these compliances. So some of the main key features, as you can see on your screen, would be the intelligent automation. So essentially what this does is that it will eliminate repetitive admin tasks, like for example, assigning courses to your staff. So by automating it, it will calculate what your staff members need, and it will automatically enroll them to these courses. But if you wish to do your own programs, of course you can. We can do there's an extensive library with full of templates that you can use. You can custom build them yourselves by branding them. But the best thing I think about the program is that they're very, very small. Now, each course takes anything around 5 to 10 minutes to complete. Obviously, it depends on the skill of your particular staff member, but they're done in a way that they're quite interactive and they're very intuitive for your staff. And like I said, you can obviously monitor your staff performance through our dashboard. So this is how we go about the 4 steps. Like I said earlier, there's 5. This one is missing the excuse me, the progression of it. But the first thing is that we would evaluate, where we would use this to assess the user vulnerabilities. We would educate. This will enforce it and empower your workforce to know how to identify these threats, followed by the simulations where you would do these mock phishing attacks, and finally dual reporting, which in this case is referencing to the policy management. So in the evaluation step, this is where you determine the user risk profile. So through this, like I mentioned before, you would take the gap analysis, which is composed at the moment of 36 questions and takes about 10 minutes to complete. It brings down quite a lot of topics. And the minute you enroll your user, it automatically sends this gap analysis course or test to your staff, in which they will then assess them, and finally it will enroll them into a 12 months training program. Followed by that, it's the education step, where once again, you can prioritize courses. So for example, if you notice in the gap analysis that a particular user has failed within the phishing attacks, you can then manually assist them or add them, enroll them into different courses that are all related to phishing. You can make them automated or you can do them manually, doesn't matter. And it's very engaging and jargon free. You want to make it simple so it sinks in, and the staff members, doesn't matter what level of technology or IT they have, they'll be able to understand them and also remember the information that they were just sent. The simulation. From the simulation, you can choose our ready-made templates. And this is where we pretend to send a phishing attack to your staff. You have different templates, like for example, as you can see on your screen, from Santander, from Barclays, from Groupon, we have from Amazon, Microsoft. There is quite an extensive library that you have that you can choose. And of course, obviously, people or companies do change their websites from time to time. So if you see that these templates are not as accurate as you would like, you can always build your own within the platform as well, which can come in really handy. The more realistic the phishing email comes and the landing pages are, the more likely that your staff will fail or they will click on the harmful link, so you can then reinforce your policies to all your staff members. And then the final stage, which will be the reporting. So the graph that is moving on your screen, excuse me, which is the one on the bottom, is more or less what you would see with the gap analysis. So in this particular example, Nihil, what he did was that he did very poorly on phishing, but he excelled in social media, for example, and working remotely. So automatically then the platform will assign most of the courses that have to do with phishing and all the things that he didn't do quite well, which in this particular example, it's all the yellow dots versus the green dots. The green dots is where he did well, or she, I'm not sure, I think it's a he, or the yellow ones is necessarily where that person needs a bit more attention to. The next module would be our Ufish. So this is the one we already talked about a few times, which is the intuitive cloud-based phishing software. So essentially from here is where you can send these mock phishing attacks, and to pretend we're going from some sort of organization. You can also custom build them to creates an email saying it's coming from the finance director, from another member of staff, your managing director, doesn't really matter. So with Ufish, what you can do is you can determine the vulnerability towards phishing within your organization on a user level. You can also identify what needs urgent awareness training. In this case, it's with phishing. And of course, once again, it will assist you to build a more security-minded culture within your organization. So some of the key features will be the automated phishing. So that is by default, it automatically will send these phishing attacks, and you can sort of set it up on the frequency. You can do it every week, you can do it every month, you can do it every 3 months, doesn't matter. You get to choose, or if you prefer, you can always turn that off and send them yourselves. Completely what you wish you can do. Once again, it comes with a realistic template library. It will have some inline training. So once they fail this phishing attack, it will automatically enroll them into another phishing course. And once again, you can track down and you can do some in-depth reporting to see exactly who has failed these phishing attacks. So this is just a small screenshot of some of the features within Ufish. Like I mentioned, you can either enable it, disable it. So this is in particular the Autofish, which is the one that automatically sends to your staff. You can choose once again every how many weeks you want to do every simulation. If you want to send it during working hours, this is completely up to you. In my personal opinion, I think it's more believable if you send phishing attacks during working hours, and it's also more liable that people will fail it, as they will be busy with their day-to-day activities, whereas if they're relaxing in front of their TV watching Netflix, they may pay more attention if a suspicious email comes into their mailbox. And I think some of the very cool features about this is that you can exclude certain groups from receiving the simulations. Let's say, for example, that your IT department are the people that actually create these simulation effects. So you don't want them to receive this email because they will obviously delete it, and that will sort of affect your statistics and your reporting, as it will show that your entire IT department did not fall for this hoax. So from here, you can create a group and exclude them from the simulation. Also, you can exclude certain templates. So essentially so obviously every template will be for a particular industry, or for example, banking or the construction industry. So if you're in healthcare, maybe you don't want to receive all the construction related templates. So you can exclude templates here from these simulations that have no pertinence within your organization. On this screen, you can see once again a small sample of all the templates that are available within Ufish. Obviously, these are already made for you, but like I said before, if you wish to do your own, you may. You can also play around a little bit with the ready-made templates to make them a bit more believable and more relevant to your sort of user levels. Maybe you've noticed that I don't know, the Amazon one is out of date or has the wrong logo. You can go in there and you can change it as well. Which brings us to this section where you can create custom emails and landing pages. Now, the custom emails is just particularly that. This is where you would, for example, let's say an example of phishing would be that someone is expecting, or sorry, not expecting a delivery by Federal Express. So you can go into the Federal Express website, download their logo, put it here. You can put the template name as Federal Express. You can sort of create the email to look as realistic as possible. Then you would go about, excuse me, and create the landing page. So the landing page essentially is the website where people would go or once they click on the quote unquote harmful link you sent them. So that's what puts the tracking code. So once they click the link on the fake phishing attack, it will take him to this fake website, and that's how it tells you that, I don't know, John Doe clicked on the link, Jane Doe opened it but didn't click on it. So there's different scenarios that can happen on these phishing attacks. So let's say, for example, John Doe did click on the link and he essentially compromised the security of your organization. So a few minutes later, he would receive this email saying, we've enrolled you on a phishing course, and this is why we've enrolled you. It's basically because you've just failed and compromised the company data. So this is very, very helpful as well for your staff to see why do you have to take this course? Well, precisely this. And these emails as well can be custom made, so you can change the wording of it. You can put your own little logos and images. It's completely up to you. So with the real-time tracking, as you can see in this particular organization how many people have clicked on the actual email, how many people have opened it, and if anyone has compromised it. So in this particular example, 66% of the people opened the email and they've had 0 compromises, which is exactly what you want to see. You don't want to see any compromises, because that compromise is literally the opening the door to these cyber criminals to attack your data. Now, if you want to go a bit more into depth, you have, once again, the in-depth reporting, where you can drill down by groups, you can drill down by templates, by landing pages. If you click on the compromise, you can see which users exactly compromise your information. So it gives you a bit more information on your particular attacks, on your particular users, which may be the weakest link. I know I said that they weren't before, but in this case, if they did click it, they could potentially be a weak link in your organization. And that's precisely what you want to avoid when these type of cyber attacks happen in the real life. The next module we're going to talk about is UBridge. So UBridge is, in my opinion, is very, very helpful. So essentially what this does is that it quickly identifies your exposed email accounts and identities on the web. So what does that mean? So UBridge is essentially a piece of software within the portal that will scan through the dark web to see if any of your employee details are available on the dark web. So what does this mean? So let's say, for example, once again, Mr. John Doe clicked on a harmful link, fills out the information, nothing happened, but potentially what happened in the background was once John Doe entered his information, that was obtained by a cyber criminal, and then that cyber criminal puts all that information on the dark web, saying that John Doe works for 123 Limited, his email address is such, his credit card details are this, the address, his phone number, many, many, many things. So essentially, UBridge does that. So it will scan the web and try to find all this information. So essentially, in your dashboard, you will go into the UBridge module, and it will tell you there in one simple snapshot who in your organization has been exposed with cyber criminals at some stage. Now, why is this key? This is very important so you can action it. So for example, not only in terms of training, but it will tell you exactly as well if this information is available at a certain website. So potentially this employee can then go and change all his details or the password to enter that website in order for those details that are available for cyber criminals is not accurate anymore. Sorry. So with UBridge, you can identify, like I said, exposed employee accounts. You can locate what data is actually exposed. You can also help to prevent data loss, and you can do these actionable steps. So once again, you can start writing policies, you can start teaching, you can start doing seminars, webinars, courses, whatever you think deemed possible within your organization in order to train all your users, all your staff of how to identify not only these sort of cyber criminal phishing emails, but also what type of websites you should allow. Maybe you should add some rules into your organization not to allow, for example, to go into certain websites. As you may recall, a few months ago, quite an important company called SolarWinds, they got hacked, and they do quite a lot of things. SolarWinds, one of them is they do remote desktops, they do remote monitoring of systems, they have security platforms. So it was quite a crucial step to maybe be aware of that. Identify if your company or your provider uses that software, as that could be possibly could have affect your company if you use SolarWinds in any sort of form and way. So the 3 steps that UBridge would work is where the step 1, it would conduct a deep web search through all the data dumps, page sites, and hacking forums. Once that's done, it will go and identify if you've had your accounts exposed online. And then the final step, it would put all those results, into your dashboard. The final module is the UPolicy. Now this one is crucial. This goes very well hand in hand with both Ulearn, well, all 3 of them really. And this is where you can easily create and manage your company policies. Now, many companies nowadays may have an extensive library of policies, and it's all on SharePoint or the file shares, or they may have some sort of intranet website, or they may use a website such as Confluence to do their policies. But one of the things that is lacking from many of these systems is that you cannot really see if your employees are reading the policies, or if they're opening them, or if they're actually acknowledging them. So with UPolicy, you can do just that. So for example, you can establish rules, standards, and best practices for all your employees. You can ensure that everything's been read and signed by your end users. And this will also contribute to your security-minded culture within your organization. And once again, this will definitely help you to achieve your compliances. So when your auditor comes again, as I mentioned in the first part of this webinar, you can then prove to that auditor that your staff are up to date with all your policies. They're aware of them, so they have read them, they have signed for them. So there's no really excuse of why they should not be aware that a policy for such and such exists. So we made your life a bit easier. So there are many companies that just don't have the time to be writing policies. So once again, you have a full library of pre-made policies for you, where you just have to really adapt them to your needs. You can also create your own. But if you already have policies in place, not to worry, you can also upload them into your platform. It will accept formats such as PDFs into the platform itself. And from here, you can actually track your employees, make sure they read them. You can email them to your employees. And best of all, like I said many times, you can see who's actually signed for them. So this would be the policy editor. So let's say, for example, you want to create your own policy. So this is obviously where you put all the details. You would put the title for it, and then it looks like a word processor, and you would just create it as you want it to look online, and you just submit it to the platform itself. It's pretty self-explanatory. I don't really think I have to go more into this. So once you create your policies, it will then display them all within the UPolicy platform. And from here, you can select different actions. So as you can see, next to each policy, you have a little tick box. So if you tick it, you can then go to the top right-hand side where it says actions, and from there you can send it, you can edit it, you can do many other things. Alternatively, you can just go to the little arrow on the right-hand side, and it will mimic the same actions that you have on the top where it says, actions. You can send multiple policies. You don't have to just do one, so you can do all at once. And from here, you can see the recipients, who's visited, and who signed it, and as well if that's a compulsory or obligatory policy for them to acknowledge and to read. So for example, you may have your clean desk policy, which nowadays is not very important. A lot of us work from home, so clean desk policy is more or less obsolete for those that don't work in an office. but then you want to make obligatory the work from home or the bring your own device. So then you would, when you create the policy, you would set it as required, or you can edit an existing one to make it compulsory as well. So if you want to drill down more into the policy, you can. If you just, let me just go back to the previous slide. So if you actually click on the acceptable encryption policy, for example, you would go into it, and here you would see exactly who has received it. So for example, we see there that Alex Thompson has visited the policy, and that's about it. So there's no proof that Alex has read it. Whereas the other 4 users, both Neil, Kerry, Bob, and Morgan, they've not only visited, but they've also signed it. So in this case, you know, when you start checking within your e-platform, you can go back to Alex, like, my friend, you know, I've seen that you've seen the policy, but I need you to sign it and look into it, please. So this will be a good for career progression as well. So if you want to ensure that Alex goes up in the ranks and he needs to, you know certain things, this is where you can track it as well to ensure that he's read everything and knows everything that needs to be known within the organization. And that obviously takes us to the fun stuff, or at least the fun stuff for us, the costs. So essentially, the e-platform is done within 2 packages, as you can clearly see on your screen. The first one being the self-managed. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. Essentially, that is £1.75 per license, and that's on a monthly basis. We do ask, of course, that there is a 10 license minimum, and there is annual commitment when it comes to this. And this self-managed would be just that. So essentially, we give you the license, you manage your own portal, you have full access to everything, and we will just leave you to it. Now, if you want a bit more, you don't have the time, you don't have the patience, or maybe you don't have the technological skill to manage this sort of dashboard, that's fine. We can do it for you as well. And that's where it takes us to the managed platform. So manage is just that. Not only will you also have full access to the dashboard, so we could collaborate, you could do your thing, or we could do just certain specific aspects of the dashboard, but that would be £1.50 per license plus £100 for us to manage it for it. So what does this include? So apart from obviously the obvious, which is managing your dashboard, we will also send phishing simulations for you, apart from the automatic one. So you can choose. We'll send you one extra one. We'll do one bespoke course. We will monitor all your data breaches, and of course, if you're a client with us, you'll know that we send you monthly reports for the help desk and your asset register. So we would add these statistics for you within your monthly reports as well. So on top of that, we have some add-ons. So let's say, for example, one custom course is not enough for you. We want to do more, or you just want to do maybe one every few months. That's fine. If you just contact us, we can give you a quote to create a multiple choice exam for you, or some sort of video presentation. And as well, we can, you know, create policies for you, distribute them. We can even send you more phishing attacks. It's all very customizable. If you just contact us for each little thing that you want within the add-ons, we're more happy to provide you that service as well. So we've been concentrating a lot on sort of the phishing aspect of the platform, but essentially you could potentially use this platform for everything. Here are just a few examples. For example, you can create an induction package. So let's say, for example, you have a new starter. You want to ensure that they read all your policies or take a particular video presentation course. So you would assign them to the platform. You would send them everything they need, and you ask them to fill out everything. And you can say, okay, so until you don't read your bring your own device policy, then we cannot allow you access to the systems with your laptop. Or if you want to work from home, that's absolutely fine, but you need to read these policies or you don't get access to the systems. That's one example. You can test your internal security. You have a record of your training for your staff. Now, we've seen this a lot in the hotel industry. For example, they want to teach their new starters of how to use a particular system. In this case, it will be their PMS systems. So they have to go through a lot of courses, or maybe if you've implemented, I don't know, Outlook 365 and your users don't know how to use it, you could create a few courses for them, interactive, where they have to click here, click there, in order to teach your users how to use Outlook or Office, Word, things like that. And you have a training record, so you know that they've taken that training. And like I said, it's not limited just to cybersecurity. You can create your courses on anything you want. And most importantly, or also one of the most important things, you can check if your staff credentials have been compromised. Now, this is crucial. Now, obviously, the way UBridge works is that it will only check your company email, because that's the email you have enrolled in the platform. So unfortunately, if that particular staff member has done some dubious activities with their personal account, with a Hotmail account, Gmail account, unfortunately, that will not show in this platform. But of course, if you see that they've done some breaches with their company account, then you can only start to imagine how much they've done with their personal account, and that would be something that potentially you would like to address with that particular staff member. Make sure that they take training. Maybe they did it unknowingly or purposely. It doesn't matter in this case. They need to be aware that these things are very dangerous. So if you're still not convinced, we are offering everyone a 14-day free trial in order for you to explore the system. So essentially, we would give you full access to the platform where you could perform the gap analysis to your staff members, and completely free for the first 14 days. You can have a play with the dashboard, you can have a play with the courses, create your policies, and from there you can decide if this would be something useful for you, or maybe you love it, but you just don't have the time to manage it. So then you can decide if you want to have the self-managed package or if you want us to manage it, and that's perfectly fine. If you wish to take on this course, feel free to contact us. I will give you shortly some information on how to do so, and we can organize that for you. There are some steps prior for activation where we have to enable some domains in your current email setup, so the phishing simulations won't get blocked, and we can assess the training in the most accurate way as possible. And yes, sorry guys, ladies, this is essentially where the questions and answers were going to be asked, but unfortunately, for some reason, it did not get activated when the webinar was set up. But not a problem. I can answer any sort of questions you may have. If you just send us an email to hello@levelupnetworks.com, I will show you that in the next screen in a minute. And for those that have missed parts of the webinar or would like to share this with anyone else, we will send a link to our YouTube channel where you'll be able to watch the webinar again or distribute it within your organization, as well as this slideshow and PDF format so you can go over it as you watch the webinar again. So that's really it. I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope it was informative enough. But once again, if you have any questions, that is our email, as you can see on the bottom where it says hello@levelupnetworks.com, or you can always call our commercial department on our phone number. Just ensure you press option 1, and that will take you straight to our sales department for more information you may have on this particular product or any other service that we offer at LevelUp Networks. So once again, thank you very much, and we shall send you an email shortly with all the details, and have a great day. Take care. Thank you.